welcome back to another edition of Sally's Astrology Book Club. We are concluding our discussion of Steven Forrest, the Book of Water today, looking at the sign of Pisces. Just to review a little bit, Cancer, he says, begins the healing journey, which we find in the water signs. In Cancer, we learn to feel, just to kind of marinate ourselves in our feelings and accept that this is the emotional state we're in, learning to just experience it rather than deny it and push it away. In Scorpio, we confront the demons, the difficulties, the pain that we have going on in our lives, in our past. We talked about Demi Moore, who went through a very wrenching experience when she lost every single person in her life and had to face herself and how she had gotten herself to this point. And then after she did that, she was able to heal and move forward. In Pisces, Steven Forrest said, we look at the kind of boundlessness of Pisces, that sense that we are all one, that the boundaries that exist between human beings are very thin, they're gossamer-like, that we all have the same beating heart, the same life experiences, this healing journey. We all have water in our charts in one way or another. Even if we don't have planets in water signs, we have water houses, and then we have the planets, the moon. For example, for Cancer, Mars, Pluto for Scorpio, and Jupiter, Neptune for Pisces. So all of these things in our chart help us on our healing journey. The goal in Pisces is finally to accept and to forgive. And once we've done that, we're free and we've completed the cycle. We also think right now, Saturn has been in Pisces since March of 2023. It will be there until some point in 2025, I believe. And so it's like on a planetary level, we're all being asked to work very hard on this healing journey, to find ways that we can connect, empathize with others, and forgive and move on. And so the person I want to talk with today, if you really like movies in the 90s, you will probably really like this series, because I'm bringing up another actress who was very popular in the 90s, Drew Barrymore. And again, I turned to her chart because she has as well written a memoir. And so we don't just know the public person. She's let us in on that private Drew Barrymore and her life. And so if we think about her Pisces sun, notice that it has company. Her Pisces sun is also with Jupiter and with Venus. And so Jupiter is in its own sign of Pisces. Venus is exalted in Pisces. And so she's a very strong Piscean person. And it's also made stronger by the fact that these three Pisces planets are in her 10th house. That they were kind of, at the moment of her birth, they were up high in the sky, shining down on her. And so she tells us in her memoir that her life, her early life, was chaotic. That sort of boundarylessness that we talked about with Pisces, with a lot of emotion, a lot of feeling, but not a lot of concrete direction, was very much a part of her life. She was the child of a movie star, or grandchild of a movie star, and I think her father was also in films, but he was a very violent, erratic person who would show up once in a while in her life and create all sorts of chaos, come into their house and break things, and made her feel very unsafe. And then she was raised then by her single mother. And so if we look at her chart, this you can see the signature of the single mother in this chart, Saturn in its detriment in Cancer with the moon, which shows her nurturing. And so it turns out from her descriptions that Drew's mother was really not able to take care of herself, let alone a child. She was kind of a failed actress, just an inveterate party girl, into drugs, a lot of different relationships in and out of Drew's life. In fact, then Drew herself became the sole support of herself and her mother. She made her first movie, I think, when she was 6, E.T., and then had subsequent roles as a child actor. And so her mother pretty much just lived off of whatever money she could get from Drew making movies. And so Drew not only carried the emotional support of her mother from an early age, but the financial support. And you can see this in her second house, that Saturn moon in her second house. Another interesting thing about this moon in Drew's chart is, this is the moon that feels, the moon that kind of experiences initially that wound. And so it's in a very difficult placement, not only because it's conjunct Saturn, but if you bring Mars opposite to that moon, we can see that its oppositional point is 23 degrees of Cancer. And so that moon is between Saturn and Mars. It's called besieged by ancient astrologers. And there are no other planets that can really shoot rays into this aspect to mitigate it. So you can see the very difficult road that the very difficult experience she's had with a mother and being mothered and learning to nurture herself, a very hard journey for Drew Barrymore. In fact, we know today, I was in fact just reading the recent update of Drew reports that she cares for her mother financially, but they are estranged otherwise. It's been a very fraught path. But if we look, we'll go back. So we know that she's experienced some significant wounds. We know she's got Uranus here in her 6th house. So bringing some crisis around health, possibly, or just crisis around that self-care, learning to improve herself, learning to be healthy and strong. She had to confront a lot of difficulties in that area of her life, just learning to take care of herself. But then we see the Pisces, Sun, Jupiter, and Venus. And that's where we see the kind of saving grace in her chart. Drew writes in her memoir that in her teenage years, she was blindly rebellious. At this point, she had never had a mother or a father to give her any sort of guidelines or rules or boundaries. She was just going crazy. I think she lived in an apartment by herself from the time she was 14. So definitely she was on a path that we think of a lot of child actors, not a good path, not a good end. But there was something in Drew that refused that path. And she wrote that she got to a point in her late adolescence when she looked at herself and did not like the person that she saw. She knew there was some sort of instinctive, intuitive sense that something wasn't right in her life, that something could be better. And so that goes to the heart of this Pisces, who really, that Pisces energy does have that tap into the higher spirit, the higher reality that kind of shapes and guides our moral life. And notice also that she's got Mercury in Aquarius in her 9th house of rules and boundaries and laws. And it also is in sextile to her Neptune. And so this gave her that inner guidance to seek out a better path. And so she started thinking about, how could I be better? She sought mentors. She sought friends who were responsible. She, for example, was chronically late. And she had a friend that she was doing some projects with who just said to her flat out, when you're constantly late, you are sending a message that you are more important than everybody else, that everyone else can wait for you. It's very narcissistic. It's very selfish to do that to other people. And she was like, whoa, no one's ever talked to me like that before. But that gave her the insight to realize, I have to be a professional person. I have to show up on time. She also, at her Saturn return, kind of coming back to that very painful place, lost her father, who had been such a destructive force in her life, was dying, and she was able to reconcile and forgive him. I think by that point, she understood a lot of the demons and difficulties he was facing and reached that point of forgiveness, which Pisces journey helps free you to move forward without the pain and the wounds. And so for all of this Pisces energy, then she decided, I'm going to choose to live a positive life. She saw things that she didn't like in herself. She would work on them. But for those of you, I know she has a talk show right now. And she also has written a book called Wildflowers, which is essays about her life. And then her memoir, written when she was very young, was called Little Girl Lost. So both are really interesting. But she tells about how she just decided to live a kind life, a life of light and positivity, and that she was going to turn away from what was negative, what was drawing her down, and also that sense of I'm part of a larger whole, that each one of us can show up and choose to be the best version of ourselves, and that helps everyone around us when we do that. And so notice that she's got those Pisces planets in trine to this difficult moon. And so it shows a growing on her part. She's now, I think, in her late 40s. And so it's been a long haul for her, just kind of working on her flaws bit by bit and becoming more and more open to living a happy, positive life. And so she tells us today she's a mother. She had children, I think, rather late in life. And those children, kind of back to that Cancer moon, are her life. And of course, she's got Venus, the ruler of her fifth house, exalted in Pisces. So that final step in her decision just to be a better version of herself came with motherhood and wanting to show up and give her children the childhood, the security that she never experienced. So rather than being bitter and angry about what she had missed, she turned around and chose to create it for her own children. She also, of course, has had a few struggles with relationships. We see that Neptune in her seventh house shows that she could possibly maybe be a little deluded, idealistic when going into a relationship. I think she's been divorced 3 times. But I think she sees that as something that she continues to work on, how to be a better partner, and maybe how to choose a little more wisely. I think her husband that she had her children with, she kind of fell in love with him because he was part of this wonderful family. And in a sense, she kind of fell in love with his family rather than him individually because she so craved a family life. So that's part of her learning and growing process. And this is what Steven Forrest tells us is part of the water journey, that while we are constantly working on healing and growing past old hurts and wounds, it's a never-ending journey. It's a process that we continue to experience as long as we are alive on this earth. So in any case, I want to end by offering such a debt of gratitude to Steven Forrest for his Elements series. Going back, remember, fire planets are here and signs are here to give us that spark, to get us excited. Earth are here to help us draw what's spiritual into practical reality, kind of the ideal into the real. Mercury and all of the air planets and then the air signs are here to help us increase our perception of the world around us and to share what we've learned with others. And then the final journey is, as human beings, we experience wounds, we experience hurts in life, but we have the power within us to heal those wounds. We don't have to carry them forward with us. We don't have to hand them on to the next generation. So I think this water book is even the most hopeful of all of these wonderful books. So thank you so much for joining me for this series. And I am going to be reading another book next month, and I'll get back to you and talk to you about it then. Thanks so much. Take care.